Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. This is your latest Manchester United news, and we've got plenty to talk about. Declan Rice, potential move by Manchester United, Mason Mount, a second bid rejected, and plenty more to talk about. Make sure you get your thoughts and comments into the chat. Let's get into it. You're welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining as usual. And yeah, look, I mean, you can see it on your screen. Anybody that's watching on YouTube, straight into it. The main talking point today. Well, there's been a few, in fairness. It's been a busy enough day in relation to Manchester United news. But the one that I want to concentrate on first and foremost here is what you can see on the screen, is that Manchester United are considering player plus cash deal for Declan Rice as they join the race. So yeah, look, this is coming from Jason Burt in the Telegraph today. He says Manchester United are ready to rival Arsenal for Declan Rice with player plus cash offer. Harry Maguire or Scott McTominay could be involved in the transfer, though Arsenal will bid again and City are interested in him also. So I mean, look, it's coming from Jason Burt in the Telegraph. Decent enough. I suppose, source. But again, look, we're not here to, debate that kind of issue. We're here just to talk about the news and what's been talking about in relation to Manchester United. And look, I mean, Declan Rice, it's coming out in a number of different areas here as well, as we can see. But look, this is something that I've been talking about maybe for a couple of weeks now. We've heard in the last maybe week or so that a couple of Manchester United players have been linked with West Ham, and I've been nearly waiting for this to be announced, and maybe whether it be rumor or whether it be facts to it. I think it's always something that's made a little bit of sense, because Manchester United are looking to offload an awful lot of players this summer. And of course, Declan Rice is leaving West Ham this summer. And, you don't want to be left behind. Arsenal have already put in a bid that's been rejected straight away. They are going to go back in with another one. And is this maybe a tactic out of Manchester United that we've seen before? Like, if we look at last year's transfer window, for example, and, take Lisandro Martinez, for an example. Arsenal were in for Lisandro Martinez long before we were. Our main target was Jurrien Timber. Now, Arsenal done a lot of negotiation with Ajax. They were back and forth. Arsenal eventually tabled a bid. It wasn't enough. And then United came in and said, okay, well, we've seen what Arsenal have done here. Let's go a little bit further and maybe add a little bit more on top. And maybe it's a tactic out of Manchester United. There is a lot of the fan base that are getting worried. We're only a week into the transfer window, but there's a lot of itchy feet at the moment in relation to United actually getting some deals done over the line. And, we've been linked as usual with, the world and their grandmother, but we haven't really put anything set in stone yet. But look, Declan Rice to Manchester United, in my opinion, of course, would be a very good upgrade on what we currently have. It really would. If we were to get a Scott McTominay off the books on top of that as well, happy days. And a Harry Maguire off the books as well, because Kipiri, thanks for the gifts. Much appreciated. So, like, if you're talking about the amount of work that Manchester United need to get done this summer, if everything is to be believed, that we want to clear the decks, we want to get a number of players off the books. We want to sign at least 3 to 4 players, number 9, couple of midfielders, maybe a centre-back as well. It's an awful lot of work that needs to get done by the Manchester United board and by the people who are involved in negotiations and getting deals done. Now, historically, Manchester United have not been quick to get the job done. So if you're looking at offloading 6 players this year, for example, probably even more. Now, Iqbal is pretty much gone. Bailly is going to go. If you're talking Iqbal, Bailly, Maguire, Martinez, or sorry, not Martinez, Maguire, McTominay, Alanga, Martial, for example, Telles, Donny van de Beek. I mean, there's 8 straight away. Now, all of them are separate deals that Manchester United have to negotiate with whoever they're going to, try and get the best price that they possibly can. And that takes time. That takes a lot of time. So we've known that this board isn't very quick at getting business done. So if you can package a lovely little deal in a nice little shiny box with a bow on top and stuff Harry Maguire's big fat head in there and get McTominay in on top of him as well and just put it in the laps of West Ham and then just take out the debit card and go, here's 30 million on top, or 40 million on top or 50 million on top, whatever it may be. That will then instantly, it's like 3 deals in one. You're getting Declan Rice, you're getting rid of Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay, and that would free up time and money for other deals to be getting done. And I think that's the, not only are we, if this was to happen, not only would we be getting a very good upgrade on what we currently have in midfield, but we would be getting 3 deals in one. And I think that stands out to me just as much. Let's see what people are saying here. Not going to happen. He wants to stay in London, says Noel. Maybe so. We're just reporting on it. Oisin says, good evening. Considering everyone else are doing here we goes, and we still considering that time was through the season. Now is the time for acting frustrated, says Oisin. Yeah, absolutely, man. Noel says, as an Arsenal fan, he's definitely not worth 120 million. I completely agree with you, Noel. I completely agree. And I don't think Manchester United would actually go out and give 100 to 120 million money straight up. I think the fact that we can get players off of our books potentially while getting Declan Rice in for 50 million maybe on top. It looks like West Ham are looking for 100 million. They're not going to settle for any less than 100 million. Now, you could probably get 30 million for Maguire, maybe 20 million, 25 million for Scott McTominay, and just throw 50 million on top. And I think there you go. And it's an easy deal to get done. Now, let's look at it from the other side. And if we're looking at Scott McTominay and Harry Maguire wanting to leave Manchester United, that then does throw more complications into the deal getting done. If you're looking at Scott McTominay going to West Ham, I could see it. I really could see it. I think it would be a very good move for him. I could see him fitting into a West Ham, and we have to look at it as well. Declan Rice is going to leave West Ham this summer. They are going to need a central midfielder. Now, he's a similar player to Declan Rice. He's not as good, but I don't think, given where West Ham are and the type of way they like to play, I don't think there would be a massive gulf in difference between what Declan Rice currently does in this West Ham team and what Scott McTominay potentially could do. And let me just clarify what I'm saying there. I'm not saying that, the quality levels are the same. I'm just saying, for the way that West Ham play, there's not an awful jump between. I think Scott McTominay could do close to as good a job as Declan Rice does. Obviously, he does have his limitations. Now, Harry Maguire, on the other hand, if this was a deal to that could potentially get done, I think Harry Maguire is a stumbling block. I don't think he would want to leave. I think he's got this kind of superiority complex about him. We've seen it in some of his statements and some of his comments over the last 12 months that he has nothing to prove, which was absolute nonsense because there was major backlash over that. And basically people were coming out and saying, you have to prove yourself every time you step out onto the pitch wearing a United jersey. He cupped his ears when he scored a goal against Azerbaijan or someone like that. I'd score against them. So I think he's got this kind of superiority complex about him. And he sees himself probably playing in a Champions League team where I don't think he would. Now, West Ham, albeit they were in a relegation battle for the majority of the season, will find themselves in the Europa League next year on the back of winning the Europa Conference League. So Harry Maguire, in terms of playing in competitions, is not taking a backward step in relation to this season. He would be probably taking a sideways step. because we obviously played in the Europa League last year, and if he was to go to West Ham, he would be doing the same. But I don't see him going to it. Could I see him going to maybe in Newcastle? Probably. I don't think Newcastle would go for him. Maybe they would in terms of a squad player with him. I just think West Ham would be a good fit for him. I think he would have a good career at West Ham, given the way they play. Maybe they sit a lot deeper than Manchester United do. He can defend the box very well, in fairness to him. He's good in the air, all of that kind of stuff. I think his issue, as we all know, is when United, for example, are playing a high line, Maguire can't play a high line because he's like an Arctic truck trying to turn and get back in when balls go over the top. So I think that's the reason why he would play particularly well at West Ham. Let's see here. Party Boober says, what's the hype on Declan Rice? I'd rather keep Fred. We'll get into Fred in a moment as well. Noel says, Martinez went to United because I worked under Ten Hag, or because he worked under Ten Hag. Well, that wasn't necessarily true, Noel. I mean, Arsenal were well advanced, and then United's Urian Timber deal fell through, and we just came in and nipped him. Now, maybe the fact that he worked under Ten Hag then persuaded him. Martinez did come out and say he would have gone to Arsenal, and there's only one other team he would have gone to in England besides them, and that's Manchester United. So maybe that was the reason as well. Niall says, City went in for Kovacic and job done. No messing about. We're still fluffing around trying to get Mount. Now, as well in relation to Declan Rice, what you do have to take into consideration as well, and it's been announced today, is that Ilkay Gundogan has announced that he's going to Barcelona and he will sign a 2-year deal with them. So he leaves City after they won the, I'm not even going to mention it, but so is that going to maybe bring Manchester City into the fray for Declan Rice as well? I think if Manchester City come in for him, I think they would instantly go in as favourites, potentially. You know, Calvin Phillips is probably going to leave as well this summer. I think he's another player, I think, like Maguire, that played more for his country than he did for his club this season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. It really is. Katie is in, said, hey, how are we? How are you? Any updates on the sale? Yeah, we're going to talk about the sale in a few minutes, Katie. Absolutely. Irish Dad is in. He says, Kane, Mount, Rice, De Jong, keeper and a defender. A lot of work has to be done. The lads in charge aren't capable of doing it. That's the worry. It really is. Shane says, we are the laughing stock of worldwide football when it comes to transfers. We stand zero chance of getting Rice. Sorry for the negativity, but it's just reality. Arsenal for Life says, Rice is ours, just like the Premier League was. Arsenal for Life, and you had your username changed to Arsenal for Life Premier League Champions 22-23. As long as you come into this channel, and you're welcome, my friend, it's all a bit of banter, but I am going to continue to remind you of the fact that you changed your username to Arsenal for Life Premier League Champions 22-23, and a couple of weeks later you changed it back. I wonder why. Irish Lad says, Isaac Hansen, Aaron is the next Modric in our under-21 team. Breakthrough season for him this season. Baller. Oshin says, what United need to sign is a capable director of football and negotiating team. I couldn't agree more. Irish Lad says, Van der Sar is the man for the director's job. Ben is in. He says, sorry, I'm late. All good. Timber to Arsenal. Wait and you see United try snatch that as well. Maybe so. Maybe so, and that could be another one, Noel, that obviously Urian Timber has played under Ten Hag before as well, and we've seen United went in for him last summer as well. So it's going to be really interesting, some of these deals. City will give Calvin Phillips for Rice, and that'd be a better deal for West Ham. Says Ushin, good point as well. Let's see what people on TikTok are saying. Keep smashing the like button for us, guys. Let's try to get the 5,000 likes on TikTok. If you have a second, take a second and tap the screen a few times for me. Gets more people into the chat, gets a more interest in live. If you haven't already done so on YouTube as well, please hit the thumbs up button. Anybody on TikTok, we are putting a lot of the articles up on the screen over on YouTube. So if you want to check that out, link is on my homepage. Pop over to YouTube and come and check it out. Here's the baby monitor right on time. 1 sec. Let's see. Chris says, just go get Kane, offer Maguire as part of the deal, and they definitely won't sell him to us. Well, look, the one thing I would say about a potential swap deal is they tend not to be successful. And if you look at the main one for Manchester United over the last few years, it would have been Mkhitaryan for Sanchez, Arsenal, Manchester United. And I think both teams in hindsight now, would have seriously regretted that. Mkhitaryan didn't do anything at Arsenal, and we know how Sanchez got on with Manchester United. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think Harry Maguire could be used as a swap because Spurs have been linked with him as well. And of course, we're linked with Harry Kane. And now this whole Rice scenario as well. David Moyes seems to rate him quite highly as well. Have I got it here? Yeah, so let me just zoom in on this here for you. We suspect a rumour of Manchester United entering the Declan Rice race with a player plus cash deal could be true. West Ham will consider Harry Maguire and Scott McTominay in the deal. West Ham are keen on signing MUFC's Scott McTominay as they prepare for life without Declan Rice. And also then it's, yeah, that's it, actually. That's it. So look, I mean, a deal can be done here. It really can. It depends whether we'll actually go out and do it. That's the main talking point here, you would have to say. Benny says, talks of Ratcliffe giving up because he'll need to borrow money going against new regulations. Yeah, we're going to talk about the takeover in a few minutes as well. Noel says, yeah, and Barcelona set a 500 million release clause on Ilkay Gundogan. That couldn't be true. He's 30-something. There's no... Oh, wow. Katie says, when we get a director of football, we need one who is experienced in building winning teams. Ben says, soon you'll have 2 babies, soon be 2 bottles, screams, alarms everywhere. Absolutely. Any word on Concedo waiting on an offer from United? See that summer. Yeah, so was it Chelsea pulled out the race for him? They were leading the race for Concedo. So United have been linked with him. And it's, look, we'll know. There hasn't been anything in the last few days about it. Cottle is in as well. Good to see you, pal. And Ushin says, to be honest, if we didn't get Rice but got Scotty off the books, it'd be worth it. So there we go. Now, let's move it on, guys. And I want to talk, obviously, about the other big talking point that we've seen today. And that's in relation to Mason Mount. And Chelsea reject a second bid for Mason Mount by Manchester United. I don't know why the picture has disappeared. Let me there we go. So yeah, Manchester United have gone back in for a second bid for Mason Mount today, and according to Sky Sports, the second offer is understood to be worth £50 million, 45 million guaranteed up front with 5 million in performance related add-ons. So it's been rejected straight out. It's been rejected. And so, I mean, look, we said this last night when we were talking about Mount, that it's probably going to take 60 million, in around the 60 million mark, to get this deal over the line. But I mean, the one thing I would say about Mason Mount, and I think, you know, I've been thinking about this as well. And before the bid went in, I think United are probably trying to keep their bids and their offers as low as possible before the end of June. Reason I say that is the end of June is the end of the financial year for football clubs in England. Now, we know that Chelsea need money. Now, they're getting deals done now, and we see they're offloading players in relation to, you know, Ziyech is going to Saudi. Koulibaly is going to Saudi. I think Mendy is going to Saudi as well. So I think they need to get money in before the end of the year, given the fact that they spent so much money last season in terms of last summer and January as well. So financial fair play is coming into play for them. Chelsea need money. Are United being smart and waiting so that they can put in maybe a low offer closer to the end of June? Now, look, I understand the end of June is only, 30 days, has September, April, June, and November. So 9 days away, a little over a week. I know I sound like a 5-year-old. I still say that saying. But is it a ploy of Manchester United to maybe get Mason Mount on a cheaper amount than they may do if it goes into the new financial year on the 1st of July? I don't know. I'm just speculating here, and it's something that I did look at, and I thought, that sounds interesting to me. But that remains to be seen. It really does. I think look, I've said this before. I think Mason Mount would be an upgrade on what we currently have. And Eric Ten Hag, by all accounts, is looking to pivot away from the 4-2-3-1 kind of play that we've seen us play this year. We've seen a back four. We've seen Casemiro and Eriksen nearly as holding midfielders, and then we've seen Bruno Fernandes playing the 10 with Anthony and Rashford either side, and then whoever it was, Weghorst or Ronaldo earlier in the season up front. It looks like he's trying to pivot away from that and go to maybe a 4-3-3 with with potentially Casemiro, Mount, and Bruno Fernandes. Now, look, I mean, if we get Declan Rice and Mason Mount, hypothetically, for example, I think Declan Rice would come in and he would play that holding role. I think either him or Casemiro would play it. Now, Declan Rice has got a lot of energy. I think he can play in the number 8 as well. I don't think he is as creative as Mason Mount. But if you have a Declan Rice and a Mason Mount and a Casemiro and a Bruno Fernandes, for example, you can play your 4-3-3, no problem with that, with the bodies that you've got in midfield and the players that you have. And then when you go to the likes of the Etihad away or Anfield away, then you play Casemiro and Declan Rice together, and you play your two CDMs. So, look, I would love, I mean, the ideal scenario would be to get Mason Mount and Declan Rice together. They're best friends, supposedly. So I don't know if that is something that would, if one deal gets over the line, does that mean the other one is easier then to do? I don't know. But I think if we could get, and I think that's why it's important not only to go out and get a player like Mason Mount, for the Eriksen role, because Eriksen, I don't think is up to, I don't think he has another 50 game season in him. If we go the distance in a lot of competitions again, he needs more cover. I think it's just as important for us to get a CDM so we can not only give Casemiro a rest when he needs one, but when we go into them more difficult games, we can play two central defensive midfielders together for a more defensive side. Now, that's not me being negative. That's just me being very, I suppose, practical. You're not going to go away to Anfield with one CDM and run the show. I think you have more chance of winning a game if you have two defensive midfielders, and I think Scott McTominay is not up to that, really. He really isn't. So I think that's where the easy upgrade comes. While we're talking about midfielders as well, I do want to talk about Fred while we're at it. And of course, there was been links from Fred and Fulham. Reports today are suggesting that Fulham have pulled out of the deal because of the asking price for Manchester United. And Manchester United were looking for 20 million for Fred. And to be honest with you, a lot of people have been saying, why wouldn't they not just pay 20 million for Fred? I mean, 20 million is nothing. And yeah, but what you have to realize is that Fred is he, what is he, 31, I think? Does it say it here? What age is? I think he's 31. It doesn't say it, but anyway, yeah. So I think Fred is 31. I think he's got 1 year left on his deal. 20 million is probably too much, you would have to say. But again, this goes back to, and the more the days and the weeks kind of flow on, we're starting to see the players that Ten Hag fancies and the ones that he doesn't. He's willing to let Fred go. He's willing to let McTominay go. He's willing to let Maguire go. He's willing to let Donny van de Beek go. Now, that's all on the kind of defensive side of the team. Later in the transfer window, are we going to be hearing he's willing to let Martial go? He's willing to let Jadon Sancho go? Who knows? But like I said, letting Fred go and getting in a Mason Mount, I'm all for it. And if we can put a Declan Rice into our team as well, I would get rid of McTominay, Fred, and Donny van de Beek. I really would. But you have to realize as well, we're already after losing one midfielder in this transfer window in Zidane Iqbal. So, we do have to be careful about outright sales before we get any other players in. I Irish Lad says, is Mount Fred's replacement? 60 mil is crazy for a Chelsea bench warmer. Oshin says, I've said it for a while, no drawn out sagas, 2 bids, and if not accepted, move on. Chelsea just sold Kovacic and Kante, won't sell British for quota or another midfielder. Yeah, I agree. Noel says, most United fans would rather have Rice than Mount. Well, they're 2 completely different players. Cam says, man, you look like Declan Rice. Do I? Really? Maybe a little bit. Oh, man. I'll take that as a compliment. I wouldn't mind having his money, to be quite honest with you. Cottle says, do you think Havertz leaving Chelsea will make them drive up the price for Mount? I don't think so. I think Kai Havertz... now, if we look at the Kai Havertz deal, for example, he went to the board and he said, I want out. Time for me to go. Bye, bye, bye. And I think Chelsea were happy just to say, yeah, we think it's time for you to go as well. But I don't see Mason Mount doing that. I think he has stated that he would like to leave. He's basically said he's not going to renew his contract. So I don't see that as driving up the price. I think Chelsea at this stage now are happy just to get money in to balance the books. RSV says ball retention will be very diabolical to watch with Mount, Casemiro, Bruno as our midfield trio. I have no problem with forward players losing the ball, especially Bruno Fernandes. A number 10's role is to give the ball away. And you do not create chances unless you give the ball away, basically. Sorry, his job is not to give the ball away. His job is to create chances. But to create chances, you have to be willing to give the ball away. If Bruno Fernandes had 100% success rate in terms of passing, he would be a Scott McTominay, sideways, backwards. You need players that create to give the ball away every now and again, so I'm okay. I'm okay with that. Oshin says, forget about Ziyech, and if Havertz goes to Arsenal, they definitely won't sell. Fitz says, hi, I was wondering what you think of Zidane Iqbal to Utrecht for €1 million. Seems cheap. Yeah, we mentioned it last night. Very cheap, but reports today have suggested that Erik ten Hag kind of fell out with him early on in pre-season, and I thought his attitude was poor and stuff like that. So we move on. Kay says, ladies team let amazing players go with no replacements. Oshin says, was Iqbal a bit petty from Erik ten Hag after the bust up? And he says, looks like Declan Rice plays like chicken fried rice. What are people saying on TikTok here? Let's have a look. Martial to leave and be replaced as Dino. I think it would be time for Martial to go, but it depends on how many strikers we get in the summer. Are we going to look at, if we get Rasmus Højlund in, and nobody else, are you happy with him and Rashford sharing the number 9 role? Or would you rather have Rashford play on, wide? Of course, there is talks of maybe Harry Kane looking for United to generate some more interest in him. He is not willing to, by this, at the moment, let's never say never, but at the moment, he's looking to not maybe agitate a move. I think he might eventually, but as it stands at the moment, we're looking at maybe one striker coming in. And do you keep Martial or do you let him go? Do you keep him as maybe a third choice? Now, if you're talking about Rashford playing on the wing, then you've got Rashford, you've got Garnacho in his second season, you've got Sancho, you've got Anthony on the other side, Pelestri potentially as well if he's not loaned out. So maybe there is enough cover there, but it'll be interesting to see. Any info on the takeover yet? Yeah, we're going to get into that now in a moment. Time is flying here. Let me see. I just want to run through some real quick news. Ten Hag will speak to 40 million defenders shortly, with Man United set to miss out on 2 top targets. So this is Disasi. Manchester United have been told to pay at least 40 million for AS Monaco centre-back Axel Disasi, according to reports. Disasi, 25, joined Monaco from League One rivals Reims for 13 million in 2020. So, look, Ten Hag seems to, according to reports, seems to fancy this player. I don't think he would be a first-choice regular. He would be a squad player, I would say. But you're getting a 25-year-old so-called experienced defender, and especially if the likes of Harry Maguire goes, I mean, this guy would easily be an upgrade on Harry Maguire. But I think, yeah, it's disappointing that you're missing out on your number one targets. You know, like, I mean, who are we saying down here? Manchester United made the 25-year-old top target, and Ben Jacobs has claimed they will try to sign him or Nice defender Jean-Claude Tadibo. I've heard of him as well. So, yeah, look, I mean, United are in the market for a centre-back. It all depends whether we get one out before we get one in relation to Harry Maguire. But there is competition for this guy as well from Chelsea also. Now, if you look at the Chelsea defence, I mean, especially their central defense, it's quite old. Koulibaly is, of course, is leaving, and then you've got brain freeze, Brazilian centre back. Yeah, you know who I'm on about. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But United are in the market for a centre back, and I think we need one. I do think we need one. You know, if we're getting rid of Harry Maguire, you've got your Varane and Martinez. You've got your Lindelof then as one of your backups, and Silva. Thank you, Oshin. And you've got potentially a Disasi, because we've seen last year, and I mean, there was a lot of times last season where I said that we're going to run out of steam, and I have to hand it to Eric Ten Hag. He worked an absolute miracle in dragging us over the line into two finals, winning one, losing one, and getting top four with such a small squad. I was really, really impressed, I have to say it. Now, lightning tends not to strike twice. If we go into a season with a diminished squad and a thin squad, the chances of us going, you know, to the latter stages of these competitions is not going to be as likely, especially the fact that you're in the Champions League, which is obviously a lot tougher than the Europa League. You're also looking at, you know, new owners coming in. You would hope they would invest in January if we do need investment in January, not like last year, but depth in the squad this summer. We not only do we need to build a team, okay, and I think Ten Hag has done a pretty decent job in his first transfer window last summer of building a starting 11 in players he brought in and players that were currently at the club that he improved. He done a really good job on building a first 11. I think this summer is more so about building a squad, building a bench nearly. Now, that might mean that some of the players that we bought last season will drop to the bench this season and make up the bench, the squad numbers. You know, if you're to bring in a Rice or a Mason Mount, does that mean then that the likes of Christian Eriksen drops to the bench? You know, if you were to bring in a Kim Min-jae, does that mean Varane drops to the bench? So on and so forth. I think this summer is about building a squad and getting depth in your squad. And I think if we can do that, it'll give us a hell of a lot of a better chance of going further and challenging better for the big trophies or Premier Leagues. Hopefully go, you know, deep into the Champions League as well. I think, you know, you need depth in your squad. You really do. Kane will have to do a Berbatov and force his way out, says Oshin. RSV says, my only problem regarding Bruno is that he ghosts in big games. He was absent at Anfield, Etihad and St. James's Park and Emirates this season. I would give him one more chance, which is next season. I completely disagree. I think it's very singular of you to say that about Bruno Fernandes. If you look at them games, the Anfield game, the Etihad game, particularly, it wasn't just him. It was the entire team. If you look at Bruno Fernandes against Manchester City at Old Trafford, he was phenomenal. If you look at him against Liverpool at Old Trafford, he was phenomenal. And he was phenomenal against Arsenal at Old Trafford. So our away form was very poor collectively last season. And I think Bruno Fernandes does get a bit of unfair treatment. His goal involvements and his work rate this season were phenomenal. And he was up there with player of the season for me, alongside the likes of Casemiro, Rashford and Martinez, and maybe Luke Shaw as well. So, yeah. Let's see. Noel says, all transfers aside, you think Ireland will qualify for the Euros? Not a hope, Noel. Not a hope. We've got France and Holland in our next 2 games in September. That's pretty much over for us, isn't it? John says the likes of Liverpool and Chelsea will strengthen and will be more difficult to get into top 4. United really need to strengthen the squad. Yeah, and again, I go back to the fact of saying, guys, we're a week in. We're very close to signing Mason Mount. I have a feeling in the background we're getting very close to signing Rasmus Højlund as well. We're making moves on goalkeepers by the looks of it in relation to Onana. Now we're waiting on maybe what's going to happen with David De Gea. Regardless, we're going to bring in a goalkeeper. And, you know, we're hearing talks about Declan Rice. And, I mean, let's look at it. For example here, what do we actually want this summer? We want a number 9. At least one. Let's just say one, because it's going to be hard to get 2 number 9s that are going to score you goals. I don't think our budget is going to allow it, unless Harry Kane puts in a transfer request, and then, you know, if he puts in a transfer request after we sign Rasmus Højlund, then United go, right, let's, you know, open the emergency fund and, you know, just buy Kane, you know. So let's say 1 number 9, 2 midfielders and a centre back, okay, and a goalkeeper. That's 5 players, okay. It looks like we're quite advanced for Højlund. We are very advanced for Mason Mount. We're talking to centre backs, although we may have messed up. I still don't think Kim Min-jae is off the cards yet. His release clause is the 1st of July. So let's see what happens on the 1st of July. United can go in between now and then and offer the agents exactly what Bayern Munich are offering them. You know, we've got 9 days to do that. And then on the 1st of July, the 50 million euro release clause is triggered by, it could be 6 different clubs, and he makes up his mind then. And goalkeepers, we seem to be, you know, closing in on either Diogo Costa or Onana. So we're a week into the transfer window. It's not all doom and gloom. It really isn't, you know. We've said this before, and I will stick to this as you know, as long as the transfer window is long, is that getting players in, the majority of the players you're going to sign, getting them in before we go on pre-season tour is vital. Now, reports today have suggested that the start of July, like, or is it like 2 weeks' time, I think, the first Manchester United players will be back in for pre-season, and then the international players then will get 2 further weeks off. So they'll have 2 more weeks. So they'll be back 2 weeks after that. So we're going to be talking middle of July before we, you know, when are we actually going on pre-season tour? Let me just double check. Sorry, let me do it on this one. Manu pre-season 2023. Let me just double check. So Manchester United. Oh, will you stop putting these jokes up in front of me? Manchester United's pre-season tour starts on 12th of July. Manchester United versus Leeds in Oslo. So there we go. Manchester United versus Leeds on the 12th of July. So what are we looking at? I mean, that's brilliant in terms of watch-alongs. 1, 2, it's 3 weeks from today. Manchester United's first preseason game is. So, yeah. Now, look, a lot of these early preseason games will be, you know, will be maybe for fringe players and academy players to go and play and let Eric Ten Hag have a look at. You know, when we go to the United States, then I think, is it a week later maybe? You know, you'll have the majority of the squad on that trip. So there's time. You know, we've got a good month from now, I would say, to get the majority of transfers that we want to get over the line. We're advanced for Mount. I think we're advanced. I would say, now this is just me, but off of everything I've read, I have a feeling we're a lot more advanced for Højlund than people think. We're talking about goalkeepers and we're talking about centre backs. So look, I think it'll take care of itself. Ever the optimist, of course. Now, in 2 weeks' time, if we're in the same position that we are, I'll have a big panic button here, and I'll bloody well press it. So I think for now, I think we're okay. Let's talk about the takeover as well, guys. Despite the silence of Manchester United takeover process in public, advanced talks and significant legal steps are happening behind the scenes in relation to the takeover of Manchester United. Now, for anybody who's looking for Qatar to be taken over, which is the majority of people, given the fact that Jim Ratcliff wants to keep the Glazers on, this is good news, okay? Reports have surfaced over the last maybe 24 hours or so that Jim Ratcliffe has all but given up on winning the race to buy Manchester United, and that the Qataris are in the driver's seat pretty much, which, you know, is good news. It really is. And I think we're going to find out. I'm going to say we'll probably find out by the end of next week. I think it'll be the end of next week. We'll know who the new owners are. I really do. And let's hope it is Qatar, because they offer the best scenario and the best outcome for us. They really do. Let's see what people on TikTok are saying here. Hit the follow button if you're new to the channel as well, guys. Make sure you're hitting subscribe if you're watching on YouTube as well. United 26 says we need an aggressive number 9, hungry for goals. Absolutely. Benny says there'll be some decent chance for Onana. Yeah, one springs to mind straight away, doesn't it? Luke says, don't get why we are going for Mount. Where will he play? Is he even good enough? He'll play instead of Christian Eriksen, I think, Luke, in my opinion. Klopp says, when will Anthony and Sancho be classed as good signings? Well, Anthony has had, I mean, let me see. Let's have a look here. We're looking at now, Jadon Sancho is in a league, a bracket of his own now for the minute. But if we're looking at Anthony, for example, how many goals has he got this season? He has got 10 goals and 5 assists. So look, I mean, sorry, one of them was in the Eredivisie, so that doesn't count. So 9 goals and 5 assists, I don't think is a bad return for a first season for Anthony. I really don't. And I think, and I've said this throughout a lot of my watch-alongs last season, that I think if Anthony can improve his finishing and his decision-making, he'll be a good player. I love his work rate. The defensive side of his game is very impressive. He's always looking for the ball. He's always available. It's just his decision-making and his finishing have to improve. And I think they will under Ten Hag. But Sancho, on the other hand, I've said it before and I'll say it again, I wouldn't be disappointed if he was sold. I also wouldn't be disappointed if we give him one more season. But he has one more season at most. And if he doesn't up his game, it's time for him to go. But again, I mean, he hasn't been an Erik Ten Hag signing. So not that there's no loyalty there from Ten Hag, but there's no, I suppose there's probably no feeling of guilt in relation to Ten Hag and him buying the player because he didn't buy him. He said, well, look, he wasn't my signing. You know, I didn't mess up signing. I didn't pay 70 million for him. You guys did. So that doesn't mean I have to play him. Dara says, do you think Rice is more likely to join Arsenal or United? Probably Arsenal at the moment, but look, let's see what happens. Let's see what other people are saying here. I think Mount has been signed, says Stiuk. Kiefer says, Anthony brings good energy to the team. Yeah, I agree. Stephen says, if Qatar take over, they would be mentioning Pickford and Mount. Pickford can take a long walk off a sharp pier. He's not good enough for Manchester United. He's not good enough for Manchester United. And Erik Ten Hag does not want Pickford. He wants a goalkeeper that can play football. Pickford can't play football. Pickford is just a nutcase that, you know, I could just see as a child. Put the mad lad there in the goal. He just loves leaping around the place and he loves getting hit in the face with the ball. Put him in the goal, and he just turned out to be a really good goalkeeper. Anthony's first season, he'll be a different player this season. Sancho will come good. Mad Mumba says, but doesn't seem we'll be signing anyone anytime soon. Be patient, my friend. Let's see. Is there a case to keep Dean Henderson? No, absolutely not. Dean Henderson is another one that can, jog on after his comments last season, and it seems to have annoyed Eric Ten Hag as well. So I don't think Ten Hag wants him anywhere near. Dean Henderson would be a bad apple in that dressing room. We've seen, with Rangnick and Solskjaer last season, how toxic the dressing room was. And a lot of that was down to the players that were there. Dean Henderson was one of them players. Bye-bye. See you later. Fitz says, I know it's an obvious question, but can we buy players while the club sale is still up in the air? Yes, we can. Yeah, absolutely we can. We can. Yeah. Oshin says, striker, keeper, winger, midfielder, and a centre-back. We are the only team in the Big Six who've not signed a player. Glad at least one of us is optimistic. Well, that's my job. That's my job. I'm not coming on here to be negative or anything like that. This is it's escapism here, really, on the United Community Channel, isn't it? We get away from reality for 45 minutes every night. But yeah, so look, let's be positive. Let's be positive, and we'll see what happens. Boop, 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 boop. Rumors has it that you're fan or that you're getting Pickford. No. RSV says Anthony didn't track back at Anfield, as you just mentioned, his defensive work rate. After that, we capitulated badly. We should buy Gonzalo Ramos from Benfica for 60 million, says Ahmed. 60 million, you would be getting him for very cheap, I have to say, because I think Benfica are looking for closer to 100 million for him. But anyway, guys, I do want to remind everybody, anybody that's watching on YouTube, you can see it on the screen. Our raffle at the moment is for a PS5. And if you want to be in with a chance of winning, you can scan the QR code on the screen. The link is pinned to the top of the chat, and it's also in the description of this video as well. Anybody on TikTok, if you want to be in with a chance of winning the PS5, the link is on my homepage. Just click the link, and you can enter as many times as you want. We're going to be doing the giveaway on the 1st of August, so make sure you don't miss out. Any money above the cost price for the PS5 will be going to charity as well. So even if you don't win, the money's going to a good cause. We'll decide later down the line what it is. So yeah, if you want to be in with a chance of winning a PS5, link is on the homepage on TikTok, and it's pinned to the top of the chat, and it's in the description of this video on YouTube as well. But look, guys, I think we'll leave it there. I appreciate everybody watching. If you haven't already done so, please smash a like on the video if you're watching on YouTube. Hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. If you're watching on TikTok, please do hit the follow button, on the road to 40,000 followers there as well. Thanks to everybody for your comments and your thoughts in the chat. It's much appreciated. We'll be back tomorrow night with another update again from 8 o'clock. Like I said, Monday to Friday throughout the entire summer, obviously bar the odd day here and there. But yeah, we're going to be doing it basically every night. So make sure you're subscribing, following, so you don't miss out. Hit the bell notification as well, finally, so you will get notified when we go live. You can jump straight on and jump into the chat. But guys, I appreciate everybody watching. Until tomorrow, take it easy. Peace out.